Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the pod. So, those of you who have listened to previous episodes would know this, so forgive me, but I'll give a bit of an update to everyone else. This is our US on tour mini series. So you're basically hearing from me and all the ins and outs of my travel and experiences, all the funny stories, and also all my insights. And these episodes are not edited, so you'll hear me trip up and you can laugh. I am currently in New York City. I got here about a day ago. I waited about a day to report back to you all because I wanted to get insights. It's so surreal being back here. I actually used to study in LA at USC, and this was during my university days. I did an exchange here in LA. I also travelled for a couple of months before, and I have been back to the US and I went to New York since then. Having said that, it really feels like a different city in a few ways. Firstly, I mean, it is amazing, and I also was not really sure what I was going to be walking into, particularly because I haven't been here since COVID. I was considering going to LA actually initially, and I've heard that, unfortunately, on the West Coast, homelessness has become really prevalent, which is incredibly sad. And look, I believe COVID has played a huge part in that. Basically, in the US, they don't have, like we do in Australia, sort of like that public health system. It's more that you have to get I guess, similar to like a private health insurance, or your work has to provide you health insurance. I am not well versed in how all of this works, so please excuse my ignorance. But I guess the point is the public system is perhaps under a bit of strain here since COVID, and a lot of people who weren't necessarily, homeless prior to COVID, or perhaps were on the brink, have found themselves on the streets, which is just so incredibly sad, because I guess they've lost jobs or, and aren't able to pay for their rent. And I don't even know if public housing is, I'm assuming there is sort of a level of public housing here, but I guess given the strain and the number of people and the population, obviously there are people on the streets not being able to access that housing. So it's incredibly sad. I've kind of gone on a bit of tangent here, but I guess I've given you my reason as to why I didn't go to LA and also San Francisco, where a lot of my friends live. I had a friend who went to San Fran more recently, and she traveled by herself, and she said she felt a little uneasy. Now, that was her experience, but basically sort of walking down the streets and things like that, she was a lot more aware of her own security. And so that was San Francisco, and I started thinking, okay, well, maybe, look, I've been there so many times. Also try somewhere new, Leone, hence why I went to Texas. But I also thought to myself, I'm traveling by myself. I don't really want to put myself in situations, unnecessarily, where I may feel a level of insecurity around my own security. So and similarly, I had a friend who lives in LA, and she said, for example, Santa Monica Boulevard, which is a beautiful, beautiful spot, which I spent a fair bit of time in LA, and it's lined with sort of shops and restaurants and things like that. She said that similarly, there is a lot more sort of homelessness in the area, and, which is completely devastating, I should say. I mean, to think that people are on the streets, breaks my heart. But at the same time, she said, as a single person in the area, she felt just a level of unease. So I sort of started thinking to myself, okay, well, I'm traveling by myself. I'm predominantly spending time in New York. A lot of my podcast opportunities and things like that were sort of here. Also, my sister lives here, which is the whole reason for the trip, because I'm coming for her 30th birthday, which she's celebrating here in New York City. But then I also started thinking, maybe I'll just spend most of my time in New York and go somewhere different, like a Texas, where I know people. I think that's also the element of traveling solo. And maybe I'm not as adventurous as I was in my 20s. In your 20s, you don't really care. You just you go with the flow. You might be hosteling it on your own, or you might be meeting people in different locations and happy to spend time alone in a city where no one. I think, I don't know, we were more risk averse back then. Whereas now I'm a little bit more sort of, conscious and wanting to make sure that when I do arrive at a destination, I do know people there and it's an opportunity to catch up with them too. So yes, anyway, here I am in New York City and it's fantastic. I've been actually really surprised. From visually, it's very similar. I think, there hasn't actually, from a security perspective, I haven't felt uneasy at all since being here. It feels very safe still as a city. Perhaps the areas I'm traveling in as well. I'm staying here in Soho. My sister and a lot of friends live sort of in the surrounding suburbs so it's, I guess, to those who haven't been to New York before, I guess Soho, I've spent a lot of time in the West Village, going to restaurants there. It's such a blast. I can't even explain how much I love that suburb. And so for those of you who don't know New York well, Sex and the City, Carrie Bradshaw, she lived in the West Village. So all that imagery, a lot of it is from the West Village with those beautiful brownstones and the steps going up to the homes and the restaurants and cafes and bars. And so I guess, Soho, West Village, Chelsea, those sort of areas that I'm sort of spending a bit more time in. I guess you would say they're more residential. The towers are not so high. It's not like the middle of Manhattan where, I don't know, I guess you'd say more like Rockefeller Center or Fifth Avenue, where it's like these soaring towers and hundreds of people on the streets. It's a little more chill, I guess. So it's been really cool to be on this side, because a few times, I think the first time I spent sort of in the middle of Times Square when we first came here, because we didn't really know and I just wanted that tourist experience. The second time I stayed in the Upper East Side, which is more residential as well, but a very different feel to, I guess, your Sohos, which is a lot more sort of cosmopolitan, lots of shops and restaurants and things. So that's been awesome. I did start by saying that it is a little bit different to when I have come previous times. And I guess the most glaringly obvious thing is the cost. The cost. Like, I don't know, my sister said, just be prepared. Like, it's kind of Europe prices because the Australian dollar is so weak. So you're almost doubling everything. So you see a $30, I don't know, salad, you double it and take a little bit off. And so, look, I was prepared, but I mean, when I came back in the day, it was actually quite cheap. I mean, I'm not going to say it's not like Asia cheap, but, it was reasonably affordable and I felt a bit cashed up. But now I'm like, ooh, okay, salad. Literally, I bought a salad the other day from, what's it called? Sweet Greens, I believe, is the new kind of big rage over here. Anyway, and it was $25 for a salad. Yes, I had salmon in it and avo, but $25. I was like, wow, we are not in Kansas anymore. Again, I mean, look, on holiday, it is what it is. It's, it's so fun, but it is so incredibly glaringly obvious to me. And then particularly when you are out and then you have to do the tip, and that's 20%. And then they don't include tax. So they include tax at the end. And so your bill has just gone through the roof. And you're like, you know what, at this point, just take my money, take it. It's all good. I had a good experience. I don't want to think about it. Like, let's just keep it moving. So that had been, I reckon, the biggest thing. I mean, honestly, let me just add this in. Coffee. I'm getting a coffee here for about on average, $6 USD. So that's, I don't know, round it up, take a bit off, $10 Australian. Like, I don't know, like that just blows my mind. But anyway, it's, I guess, a very different story. And I did actually ask some friends who live here, I'm like, how are people affording things? Like, obviously they're earning USD, so it's completely different. The exchange rate plays into it a lot, but inflation has become problematic here as well. I guess my friend who lives in New York mentioned to me, firstly, the minimum wage that, listen to that stumble. The minimum wage has obviously increased drastically since I was last year. So that, that plays into it. Also, I guess just in general, New York is filled with a lot of wealth and a lot of people who are here doing business and things like that. And just generally the tips, even those who aren't in sort of really high paying jobs, the tips and minimum wage and things like that, according to a friend of mine, are reasonably good. So generally, I haven't even seen much homelessness at all in New York. Now, as I said, I might be sheltered. And funnily enough, my sister did say it seems like, I don't know whether people who are homeless perhaps go to different spots during the summer. She said it has sort of, the streets do seem a little lighter on that front. So I don't know, but my experience in general has been, wow, like this city, everyone seems to be thriving and everyone seems to be, I guess, living their best lives. Opportunity here is huge. A lot of friends of mine who live here have roles that just wouldn't even exist in Australia because, again, of the size of the businesses. A friend of mine works at Google. I had the pleasure of walking through Google the other day, and, there's like 4 restaurants, like cafes/restaurants, and the employees don't pay. So you just kind of go up and you go, yeah, I'll just have a sandwich today. I'll have a coffee, chill, and, there's a spa, there's a gym, there's like literally balcony areas. Like there's one balcony area that is just lush with all this landscaping overlooking the entire New York City, and it's called the Meditation Garden. It's absolutely phenomenal, this new building that they're in. And I guess the premise of Google doing this and a lot of the other big tech companies making it like all-inclusive in-house is that I guess people don't want to leave. So you don't have to go too far to get your meal and then you go back to your desk. So it's super cool. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know how many Australian-based companies would offer that level of amenity, but huge. Another thing that was actually quite interesting to me was I'm about to do a walking the streets segment. So I'm going to hit the streets with a microphone and a videographer, and I'm just curious. I want to ask parents here, what's it like to be a parent? Are their challenges the same? Are their expectations the same? What is it like? I always just love finding out, where people are at on that front. As you know, that is the whole premise of the podcast. So I'm excited to do that. But in preparation, as I've been walking the streets, I've been looking around and just seeing, okay, who are the parents that are out and about on a Wednesday at 11 a.m. And it is so interesting, but a lot of the people pushing the prams are not the parents. And I know that because they are traditionally, I'm going to say, Hispanic or African American descent, and they are pushing prams with, call it white children in them on average. And obviously they're nannies, right? And I just thought to myself, oh my gosh, how many movies do you watch where there are, that stereotype of a nanny. And here I am walking the streets here and going, oh, wow, like that's a thing, that culturally, that is a thing here. And I guess I think maternity leave, if it exists, is, 5 weeks to, maybe, as far as what I've spoken to a few people here who live here. So I'm thinking, gosh, like parents really, unless you've got a lot of wealth behind you and can afford to stay home, like you're back at your job. And it's been interesting because although there has been so much movement around giving people of all races opportunities and a voice and all this stuff, obviously Black Lives Matters was a massive one and still continues to be. And, Americans are really trying to stamp out that racism and things like that, not helped by people like Donald Trump, I have to say. But anyway, that's another kettle of fish. But it's going to take generations to be able to do that and to be able to start seeing real change on the streets. So, it's really interesting that still there is that stereotype that exists for the nannies. I even noticed it for, hotel staff or valets or, it's still quite prevalent that there is a level of privilege for, I'm going to say in talking marks, the white America. However, I do feel, as though these movements, obviously with change and with generation, should start changing that landscape. Another thought that came to mind, which, I don't know, I'd love your thoughts on this actually, but I was at the airport and someone said, just obviously, that in America, you get arrested kind of for a lot more minor things than perhaps in an Australian society. So, for example, when I studied at college, the people said to me, just, for example, we were going for Halloween. It was like a week-long party, and one night we went to San Diego to a university there. I was with like a whole heap of sorority sisters, and we went to the equivalent sorority in the San Diego uni. Anyway, there was going to be this massive march on the streets. Everyone was going to wear their like Halloween costumes, which lol, by the way, were like, skimpy little bikinis and bunny ears. Like, it's very like, just be as sexy as you possibly can for Halloween. So I just remember looking around. I'm like, oh, everyone's like in lingerie. This is interesting. But guys with tops off and just like little shorts and I don't know, like some little accessory being like, I'm this person for Halloween. But anyway, but I remember everyone's like, don't look drunk, when you walk the streets, public places, you cannot have alcohol on you. Like, there will be cops lining the streets watching. And if there's anyone that looks a bit loose, they literally will arrest you. So I remember thinking, oh, okay, this is fun, I guess. Like, gosh, now I'm on high alert. So we were all sort of had a few drinks in the sorority house, and then off we went down the street, and without alcohol, just kind of marching and cheering. And I'm looking around, and there were police on most corners, sort of just watching and stuff. So it's, it's a very highly regulated and police society, which, benefits. It means that there's a lot, there's a level of security on the streets for those who are doing the right thing. So absolutely no judgment around that. But I found it really interesting. It was quite glaringly obvious, the differences when, for example, I was at the Newark airport. So I flew into the airport in New Jersey, which is actually, to those traveling to this side of town, actually a really nice airport, really modern. I had a lot of friends flying from JFK. There's a few people from Australia and London and Dubai actually flying in for my sister's birthday in a couple of days' time. So anyway, a lot of them flew into JFK, and they said it was quite run down. I think they're looking to do works there. So anyway, New York was great. But I'm waiting at the baggage carousel for my bags, and there's two African-American guys sitting on the side where there are seats, sitting, I don't know, 2 seats apart, both asleep with their bags on them, right? Just like holding their bags and asleep. Now, how many times in an airport do you see people just, I don't know, even I have, laid there and closed my eyes and between travels and just been like, oh my gosh, this is a lot, and just sleeping. So, you see it all the time at airports. But I just saw these two police, they kind of walked over to one of the guys, were standing there and then looking at him. And I'm thinking, oh God, are they not allowed to sleep? Like, what's up with that? And again, maybe I didn't have all of the information, but maybe they were just checking security wise that, I don't know, that they weren't, for example, homeless. And if they were, taking to the airports, perhaps that's not allowed. I don't know. But anyway, I was just sort of watching, and then they eventually sort of went to wake up the guy, and the guy sort of like startled and woke up, and then showed the police his like tag. I guess he had like it was almost like a lanyard. So maybe he even worked at the airport. I don't know. But he sort of showed it to them, and they sort of waved at him and were like, all good. And they walked over to the second guy who was sleeping, and similarly they sort of, knocked him, and he sort of like woke up a little bit, and then was just kind of like, oh, no, I'm all good, and they said, okay, he's like, I'm flying. And they were like, okay, well, from what I could understand, they were like, all good. And then they walked on. And I thought to myself, like, that was just a bizarre interaction to me. And again, maybe we're very sheltered in Australia, but I did have a moment of thinking, shit, I better never fall asleep in an American airport. I don't know, no trouble. But also I did think, are you not allowed to sleep in the airports? Like, I'm so confused. Or is it because we're at the baggage carousel, so we're at the outside area of the airport, you're not like allowed to sleep? Like, I don't know, very weird. I don't know, would love the Americans' perspectives on this. So if you've got a thought, please hit me up on my DMs, because I was very confused by the whole interaction. But again, differences between the two cities. But yes, here we are in New York, and I am literally so excited to be here. I'm spending a few days. I'm actually quite fortunate to be on a few US podcasts. I'd spoken about that in a previous episode, about a few opportunities here, which is very exciting. I'm spending the rest of my time eating my way around New York City, and I'm actually going to be heading to my sister's birthday celebration as well at the end of the week too. So that'll be super exciting. I think I'll leave it there, folks. I will continue to touch base on my trip as things occur. For those of you who haven't already, it would be amazing if you rate us, give us a star rating and a review on the podcast app that you're listening to. It really is the best way for us to expand and reach more people. So I'd so appreciate if you were able to do that. Also, follow us on Instagram at Parenthood Pod. I'll pop the details in the show notes, and I will catch you all next time. Be safe.